Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, another block to President Trump's executive order. A federal judge today stops the Trump administration from barring citizenship to children born in the United States to non-citizen parents. Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards explains. Updates on the rescue efforts from the Texas floods. The rigorous search continues with more than 160 still missing in Kerr County alone. David Lamb has the latest. Financial aid for college, food stamps, unemployment insurance, all among the federal benefits the Trump administration is cutting for illegal immigrants. The cuts announced today are taking effect immediately. Jack Bradley reports. Multiple children killed in the Gaza Strip after a reported Israeli airstrike hits near a medical center. And 2 terrorists are killed at a supermarket in the West Bank after killing a civilian. Jason Perry brings us the update. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tells Russia's foreign minister that the U.S. is disappointed with the stalling of peace efforts. Arian Pasdar has what the State Department says about the importance of today's meeting.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. A New Hampshire federal judge today has temporarily blocked President Trump's birthright citizenship order for the second time. The ruling comes in response to a case requesting class action status for immigrant parents and their children. NTD's Arlene Richards explains.
The law that has been used to grant automatic citizenship to children born in the United States will remain in effect across the country. New Hampshire federal judge Joseph LaPlante on Thursday blocked President Trump's executive order that placed limitations on automatic citizenship. The president's order only allows citizenship to children with at least one parent who's a lawful permanent resident or U.S. citizen. This is the second time LaPlante has blocked Trump's order nationwide. LaPlante had previously issued a nationwide injunction, but it was overturned by the Supreme Court, which limited the ability of judges to block Trump's orders nationwide. The majority stated that such action was beyond judges' authority, explaining that lower courts' decisions can only apply to the parties before the court, unless the plaintiffs seek class action status, which, if approved, can provide the same nationwide impacts. Judge LaPlante's decision comes in conjunction with a second ruling that allows for class status to children of non-citizen parents born in the United States. Plaintiffs, a pregnant immigrant, immigrant parents, and their infants requested class status at an hour-long hearing Thursday. LaPlante granted their request but slightly narrowed the class to include only babies across the country who would be affected by Trump's executive order, not the parents. The administration's limitations on birthright citizenship remain in effect for 7 days, giving the government time to appeal. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Thousands of first responders continue searching for people after the deadly Texas floods. Rescue workers are using a grid system to methodically search the affected areas. And the community mourns the loss of the locals, including a coach. NTD's David Lamb reports.
The 7th day of rescue and recovery efforts continue in Texas as more than 2,100 responders search through debris in Texas Hill Country. They hope to find survivors after at least 120 deaths were reported across 6 counties as of Thursday. Kerrville PD gave an update from the county most devastated by the flood.
The number of missing remains at 161. And there remain 5 campers and 1 counselor from Camp Mystic among the missing.
The flash floods began when heavy rains in the early hours of 4th of July brought more than 1 foot of rain in under an hour. This caused the Guadalupe River to rise rapidly up to 34 feet high. Trees, homes, and other properties were severely damaged as the waters rushed through central Texas. Responders are using a grid system for the search.
I'm not a search and rescue recovery expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but it is a methodical search which ensures that every area in an area to be searched is covered and searched and that no stone is left unturned.
Officials promised to review the events to determine areas of faults and improvements, but have emphasized that their current focus is on rescue and recovery.
We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For the many brave first responders who have worked countless hours day and night, both local and from the many agencies and departments who quickly descended upon Kirk County.
I don't think Criville would be the same for a long time. I think I'm always going to think of 4th of July as a memorial instead of Independence Day, but I know it'll take a long time, but I think God gives his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers, and I think Central Texas has some of the strongest people I've ever met. So I know that Criville is going to come back 10 times better than ever. Yes. So.
The state legislature will meet in a special session later this month to investigate the flooding and provide disaster relief funding. President Trump and the First Lady plan to visit Texas on Friday. David Lamb, NTD News.
The Trump administration today is moving to bar illegal immigrants from receiving several federal benefits. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Multiple federal departments on Thursday banning illegal immigrants from receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. The Education Department immediately stopping illegal immigrants from receiving financial aid for college, trade schools, and other post-high school education. Health and Human Services banning illegal immigrants from 13 programs like Head Start, mental health and substance abuse support, among others. The Department of Agriculture is stopping illegal immigrants from receiving food stamps or SNAP benefits. The Labor Department is barring them from receiving unemployment and disability insurance. And the Justice Department is closing what they call long-standing loopholes in this regard. The move coincides with President Trump's executive order to stop taxpayers from funding programs for illegal immigrants. The administration says the move will save around $40 billion in benefits.
Take a look at what happened.
Meanwhile, this weekend marks the one-year anniversary of the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. That's as the Secret Service is announcing they've suspended 6 agents without pay in relation to this. The deputy director of the Secret Service told CBS Wednesday that the agents were suspended for up to 45 days. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem saying the necessary changes were made.
The Secret Service has a totally different leadership team now than what they did before and have gone through, and this report has now just been released. I know that President Trump has told me that he's satisfied with it.
Noem says that the administration has changed how Secret Service and local law enforcement communicate, and that the One Big Beautiful Bill, now law, provides more resources for drones and counter-drone technology, as well as training. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Israeli forces reportedly struck near a medical center in the Gaza Strip, and tragically, multiple children were killed. Meanwhile, 2 terrorists in the West Bank shot and killed an Israeli civilian at a supermarket. NTD's Jason Perry has the story and a warning. This report includes content that some viewers may find disturbing.
On Thursday, an Israeli airstrike reportedly hit near a medical center in the Gaza Strip. Footage of the incident, too graphic to share, showed the bodies of multiple children in the street who appear to have been killed by the attack. One woman, holding a deceased child, yelled at the cameraman when he began videotaping her. Israel said they had struck a terrorist who took part in the Hamas attack on October 7th. And said they were aware of reports on a number of injured individuals and that the incident was under review. On the same day, Israeli forces reported dismantling over 130 terrorist infrastructure sites above and below ground in Khan Yunis and the southern Gaza Strip. Israel said they have been battling terrorists there as well. Residents were seen evacuating the city on Thursday.
We left all our belongings and everything behind, and here are our children. Until when Gaza's situation will remain this way. Find us a solution, people.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he was hopeful that there could be a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, but that some challenges are still in the way.
The Israelis and Hamas, through the mediation of Qatar and Egypt, have reached an understanding on a 60-day ceasefire and some elements of that with regards to humanitarian aid through international agencies resuming and so forth. But now you've got to have talks about how do you implement that. And that's where this has fallen apart in the past. We're hopeful that'll work out. We're doing everything we can.
Meanwhile, in the West Bank, emergency crews responded to the scene of a terrorist attack at a supermarket. The head of the Israeli police in the West Bank gave an update.
After an initial assessment, we conclude that it is likely that 2 terrorists arrived at the compound and shot an Israeli civilian. Unfortunately, the civilian, as I mentioned earlier, is no longer alive.
He also said that civilians in the area shot and killed the 2 terrorists. One man who heard the shooting shared his thoughts.
We know the situation in our country. We know the place that we are living.
Israeli forces continue to operate in the West Bank, saying it's to ensure the safety of the civilians in the area and the state of Israel. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Asia this week. He told Russia's foreign minister that the U.S. is disappointed with the stalling of peace efforts. Rubio also criticized China's ongoing involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pozdar has more on the secretary's Asia trip.
I echoed what the president has said, both disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he told his Russian counterpart that the U.S. is not happy with Moscow continuing the war in Ukraine. Rubio and Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Malaysia on Thursday.
But it was a frank conversation. It was an important one. Look, the president's been pretty clear. He's disappointed and frustrated that there's not been more flexibility on the Russian side to bring about an end to this conflict.
Rubio added that he and Lavrov did share some ideas and comments which could be built upon. The meeting comes as Russia continues ramping up attacks on Ukraine. Just a day earlier, Moscow broke its previous record for the largest drone attack on Ukraine. On Thursday, the State Department was asked whether Lavrov deserves a high-level meeting at this point.
A lot of people didn't think Putin should be talked with at all during the last administration. He wasn't talked to for 3 years. That's not a way that you can come to some kind of understanding or agreement or an effort to stop any carnage and the suffering. You've got to talk to everyone.
The spokesperson added that the U.S. condemns the increase in attacks and that President Trump continues working towards a peace deal. Now, the secretary is also addressing China's involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war. He says that Beijing has clearly been supporting Moscow in its fight against Kiev. Rubio was asked if he's considering meeting with his Chinese counterpart while in Asia this week. Here's what he said.
Maybe we'll meet, and obviously we'll talk about it. I think the Chinese clearly have been supportive of the Russian effort, and I think that generally they've been willing to help them as much as they can without getting caught.
Also during the ASEAN summit on Thursday, Russia's Lavrov met with China's foreign minister. The two sides praised what they called the development of political dialogue and practical cooperation. This comes just one day after Ukraine said it detained 2 suspected Chinese spies, a father and a son. They're accused of trying to transfer classified documents on a key Ukrainian missile system to China. Kiev is also set to sanction 5 companies in China. Ukraine says the companies are supplying drone parts used in Russian attacks on Kiev. Arian Pozdar, NTD News.
During this week's Senate appropriations hearings, lawmakers expressed concern over the depletion of U.S. missiles and the lack of industrial capacity to replenish them in a timely manner. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has the details on the story.
During Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. spent 30 Tomahawk missiles targeting Iranian nuclear facilities in a single night. In addition to that, during Operation Rough Rider, which lasted from March through May, targeting Houthi rebels in Yemen, the U.S. has spent already approximately 2 years' worth of production of Tomahawk missiles.
I am deeply concerned with the health of our munition stockpiles, including those affected by recent operations in the Red Sea. We have a real opportunity to make progress on this through reconciliation, but the Navy's future-based budgets must also account for increased production rates.
Lawmakers have warned that the budget and the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026 must address the shortcomings in the U.S. military-industrial base to keep up with ongoing conflicts worldwide and the threat of Chinese Communist Party.
A product is purchased in China and then sold in the United States. it sold for approximately 3 to 6 times, depending on the distribution model, what it actually costs to produce in China. So when we look dollar to dollar against what China is spending on their defense, what the United States is spending on our defense, you can't compare it dollar for dollar because those dollars are representative of a very different production capacity.
The appropriations process for fiscal year 2026 is already under threat. Democratic leadership in the Senate has threatened to be uncooperative if Republicans go ahead with rescissions of already appropriated funds.
We are doing everything we can to keep the bipartisan appropriations process going, and they're undermining it with rescissions, with pocket rescissions, with impoundment in every other way.
Congress has not gone through a full appropriations process since 1997, and military officials have warned of the dangers of continuing resolutions.
Because it would be based on previous years, so that would obviously be, a detriment to us in the Army. The battlefield is constantly changing. I think it would impact in several areas.
We oftentimes talk about how we, the United States Army, are a bad customer, both to ourselves and to our the companies that sell to us. And when we continue to have CRs, it makes our spending decisions and the downstream effect on our suppliers even more amplified.
Congress has until September 30th to pass a budget for fiscal year 2026 or risk a government shutdown. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Tonight, join NTD Steve Lance as he exposes a covert Chinese Communist Party campaign threatening America from within. From media to the justice system, a plan to control public opinion and silence a faith group. The CCP's covert war inside the USA tonight at 7:30 p.m. only on NTD. Coming up, the chairman of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party is demanding several universities cut ties with a CCP-backed scholarship. He says it's allowing the regime to steal U.S. technology. Melina Weisskopf takes a closer look. And Senator Josh Hawley is renewing a push to ban anyone with ties to the Chinese regime from purchasing U.S. farmland. Why he says it's a national security concern. Jason Blair reports. And the Trump administration is suing California over animal cruelty laws, blaming them for high egg prices. They say the rules impact farmers nationwide and could raise costs for shoppers. Christina Corona has that story when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A member of Congress is cracking down on a scholarship backed by the Chinese Communist Party. He says it allows the regime to steal U.S. technology. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
The Chinese Scholarship Council, a scholarship program managed and funded by the Chinese regime, is accepted by several colleges in the U.S. Chairman of the House Select Committee on the CCP is demanding the universities to cut ties with the program. Chairman Molinar said it's different than other international programs because of concerns over academic freedom, surveillance of students, ideological control, and potential espionage. He pointed out that students who get the funding must agree to return to China for at least 2 years after completing their studies. And while they are studying abroad, they must check in with CCP embassies every 3 months to report their research output and academic progress. The chairman says this gives the regime a leg up in stealing U.S. intellectual property and is demanding 7 universities to cut ties with the CCP-backed scholarship. This comes as the committee is making a focus of protecting and advancing American AI research.
Will the future of artificial intelligence be led by free nations or by authoritarian regimes like the Chinese Communist Party? AI is not just another tech breakthrough. It will shape our economy, our military, our diplomacy, and our national security for decades to come.
In a letter to the 7 universities, the chairman described the Chinese Scholarship Council as a technology transfer effort that exploits U.S. institutions and directly supports China's military and scientific growth. The universities must respond by July 22nd. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Senator Josh Hawley is renewing a push to block China from owning U.S. farm and residential land. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
The Protecting Our Farms and Homes from China Act is a law that would ban Chinese corporations and anyone with ties to the Chinese Communist Party from purchasing U.S. farm and residential land.
This is a huge threat, and it's not just a huge threat for the farmers, it's a huge threat for every single American. The national security interests here are just off the charts.
It was introduced by Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Hawley told Real America's Voice that the move is also to codify an effort the Trump administration announced earlier this week.
Write it right into the United States Code so that it can't ever be undone except for another act of Congress, and then you can see every person who's voting to undo it.
On Tuesday, U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins was joined by several agency heads to announce an effort to ban Chinese nationals and other adversaries from owning U.S. farmland.
American agriculture is not just about feeding our families, but about protecting our nation and standing up to foreign adversaries who are buying our farmland, stealing our research, and creating dangerous vulnerabilities in the very systems that sustain us.
And I've watched for decades as evil foreign governments, including China, have come into this country and they've stolen our intellectual property. They've manipulated their currency. They've treated us unfairly in trade deals. They've come in and purchased up our processing companies, stolen our genetics.
But it's also just the application of common sense. As someone who's charged with leading the Defense Department, I want to know who owns the land around our bases.
If the act is passed by Congress, it would also require current Chinese corporations and CCP-linked owners to divest within a year. Both of the efforts are part of an ongoing broader push by the Trump administration and lawmakers to counter the Chinese Communist Party's unrestricted aggression to undermine and destabilize the U.S. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
The Trump administration is suing California over the state's animal welfare laws. The Justice Department claims California's rules are driving up egg prices and conflict with federal law. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
The Trump administration is suing California and Governor Gavin Newsom over state laws that require farm animals like egg-laying hens to be treated more humanely. They say these laws are making egg prices more expensive and go against federal rules about how eggs should be checked, packaged, and sold.
The Justice Department wants to stop California from enforcing these animal welfare laws. They argue the rules, like giving hens more space to move around, are unnecessary and don't really help consumers. The department says farmers across the U.S. have had to stop using cheaper, more traditional methods of raising animals, which kept prices low. California passed two ballot measures, one in 2008 and another in 2018, that set strict rules for how animals like chickens, pigs, and calves must be housed. One example is hens must be able to stretch out and not touch other birds, and they can't be kept in small cages. The 2018 law also requires cage-free systems. But the Trump administration argues these state laws are unconstitutional. They say California's rules are overruled by a 1970 federal law, the Egg Products Inspection Act, which gives the USDA and other federal agencies the power to set national egg safety standards. The law also calls for uniformity across all states. The administration also says egg prices went up by 20% after the laws were passed. The Justice Department says its new lawsuit is part of a bigger effort to protect consumers from unfair business practices and excessive regulations. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement, Americans across the country have suffered the consequences of liberal policies causing massive inflation for everyday items like eggs. She said the Trump administration will use the law to cut back on heavy regulations and help bring back prosperity for American families.
Supporters of California's laws say they protect animals from cruel confinement and reduce risks like salmonella in the food supply. Reporting from the city of El Monte, Christina Corona, NTD News.
With President Trump's big, beautiful bill set to take effect, what are the implications on everyday Americans across the country? And how should we look at some of the key items in the bill? Stay tuned for analysis from Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on NTD's Capitol Report. Coming up, as President Trump sends out trade letters to more countries ahead of an August 1st deadline, how can the U.S. ensure its tariffs are being enforced? What are some ways that China has used to skirt tariffs in the past? Finance professor and public policy analyst Michael Busler joins us to discuss. The UK and France agree to a landmark one-in, one-out migrant scheme. Britain can send illegal immigrants back to France in exchange for a legal asylum seeker. But critics say the scheme is too mild and won't deter illegal entries. Malcolm Hudson reports from London after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. This week, President Trump sent letters to various countries warning them of the August 1st deadline to negotiate new trade deals. In a Truth Social post, the president said tariffs will start on that date and that, quote, no extensions will be granted. The U.S. has already reached trade deals with the U.K. and Vietnam. And Trump said last month that the U.S. and China had come to an agreement to roll back retaliatory tariffs. A few details are known about that deal. Could China use Southeast Asian countries, such as Vietnam, as a way to avoid tariffs, as some White House trade officials have suggested? Joining us now to discuss is public policy analyst Michael Busler. He's a professor of finance at Stockton University. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. Now, with Trump's tariffs, there's growing awareness of something called transshipment. That is when countries like China send a shipment to a different country first, slap that country's label on it, and then send it to its final destination to avoid steeper tariffs. Why is this such a concern? How much money are we talking about here?
A lot of money. And it's such a big concern because the goal of this tariff policy is really two goals. One, to open up foreign markets to U.S. Companies, countries that have had very high tariffs for years and kept us out. But it's also to bring back some manufacturing to the U.S., particularly in goods that are vital to national security: steel, copper, aluminum, medical supplies, etc. So we're trying to wean from China, and we put on relatively high tariffs. And as a result, their goods will be expensive, so Americans will look to buy something else. So China, which has at least a 40% tariff, what they've been doing is taking their products, sending them to a warehouse or something in Vietnam, put on a label made in Vietnam, and then ship it to the U.S. And Vietnam had a very low tariff up until recently here. So China's been doing that with other Southeastern countries, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand. They're shipping their goods there, changing the label, shipping them back to the U.S. to avoid paying the higher tariff that China has.
And how do these transshipped goods impact, say, the consumer?
So the idea is to shift manufacturing away from China and to get American-made goods. Now, we'll welcome goods from other countries too, but we want American-made goods. Having China go through Thailand really keeps the Chinese goods coming into the country. The advantage is the Chinese goods are less expensive. The disadvantage is, as you keep buying them and we have a negative balance of trade, wealth flows out of the country. So we want to continue to build wealth here. So there'll be what President Trump did in the most recent agreement with Vietnam was he put a 40% tariff on Vietnam, which is what the Chinese tariff is. So now there's no advantage for China to do that. Now, Vietnam got a little bit upset and said, why is the tariff so high? And according to Peter Navarro, one of Trump's advisors, about a third of what Vietnam sells us comes from China. So if you want the tariff to go down to what the other countries will end up paying, you have to stop letting China flow their goods through your country.
And on that note, a Brookings Institution analysis shows that export data from China to Thailand and Vietnam rose sharply in the early part of this year ahead of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. They note that this is an anomaly, pointing to China using transshipments to skirt U.S. tariffs, as you mentioned. How will the U.S. know if China is breaking the rules, if, say, components are made in China or if the company in Vietnam is owned by a Chinese national? Does that count as a transshipment?
Well, you'll have to come up with definitions about what exactly is made in Vietnam and what exactly is made in China. The thing is, this is very difficult to monitor and to make sure that China is doing what they say. Recall in Trump's first term, he came up with a real good trade agreement with China that opened up their markets to U.S. manufacturers, particularly in the agricultural industry. The U.S. is very good at producing good food and very efficient. They'd like to sell it all over the world, but other countries have tariffs and things, and that's the whole, at least one of the purposes of this whole tariff thing. So with China, we want to get it to the point where China is living up to their agreements. And as I said, during the prior Trump administration, they did come up with an agreement. It would have helped our agricultural industry. I forget, it was $50 billion worth of wheat or something like that. And then China didn't do it. They reneged. One administration led to the next, and they never did it. And they have a history of not completely fulfilling all of their obligations that they make to the U.S. So it's very important that somehow we can monitor these things and we end up getting good trade agreements that helps the U.S. reach the goals of bringing back manufacturing, particularly of goods vital to national defense. And more importantly, every country in the world opens their markets to U.S. businesses. That means they can't have abnormally high tariffs. They have to take off all these quotas that they have. They put extra regulations on American-made products. You have to get rid of all that. Open up their markets to our companies, and we'll have real international and close to free trade.
Now, as you mentioned, part of that recent trade deal with Vietnam was a 40% tariff on transshipments, sending a message to China. How likely are we to see similar deals with other Asian countries?
Very likely, because what China will do is say, well, there's a problem with Vietnam. Well, right now, Laos or Cambodia or Thailand, same proximity, they have very low tariffs. So quietly, they'll try to move into those areas. To the extent that we know about it, those other countries will then face higher tariffs. I have a feeling in the trade agreements Trump will make with these countries that there'll be some way for us to monitor that kind of thing doesn't happen. That's why these trade deals are taking so long. It's very frustrating. He said a month ago we'd have a bunch of them. This is coming, and everything is coming very slowly. And the reason is these are very intricate deals. And there are certain products that certain countries would like to make sure they're still making. So there's got to be some exceptions and things. But in the end, the goal is for the U.S. business to be able to sell their goods freely in every country around the world, and that President Trump has brought manufacturing back to the U.S. And there's already whatever number of trillions of dollars foreign countries have committed to investing in the U.S., and that too will help growth. His tariff policy, coupled with the big beautiful bill, I think will set the country on a course similar to what Reagan did in 1982 when we went into a big boom period. I think that kind of thing is probably going to happen with Trump's policies going into effect.
And as you mentioned, China has a history of breaking its promises under, the first Trump administration. So what does enforcement look like? How would the U.S. ensure these countries are following through this time around?
That's very difficult. They're going to have to negotiate something where some of our people may even have to go there to make sure these things don't happen. We really don't want to have to police these agreements. What we want is for every country, like we're going to do, sign an agreement, commit to it, and live up to your end of the bargain. I think we hope at some point China realizes that's the only way that they're going to continue to be able to do business with the U.S. and the countries that are doing business with the U.S. But policing this will be very difficult.
Lots to watch for sure. Michael Busler, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
Britain and France have agreed to a groundbreaking one-in, one-out migrant policy to help tackle Britain's cross-channel illegal immigrant crisis. The two nations hope it will act as a deterrent. But a British opposition minister says the scheme is too mild and will fail to achieve this aim. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more on this.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron agreed to a landmark migrant exchange deal. It seeks to tackle the small boat illegal immigrant crisis facing the UK.
We face a sprawling, multi-billion-pound enterprise run by organised criminal gangs, leading hundreds of people to their death in the Channel. So we're determined, together, to end this vile trade.
Under the deal, Britain can send illegal immigrants who arrived by small boat back to France. In exchange, the UK will receive an asylum seeker who has not tried to enter illegally. Starmer called this one-in, one-out system a breakthrough moment.
This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working.
Macron blamed Brexit for the UK's migrant crisis.
A lot of people from your country explained that Brexit would allow to efficiently fight against illegal immigration. Simply put, it is since Brexit that the United Kingdom no longer has a migration agreement with the European Union.
A pilot program will start on Friday. It's been reported only 50 illegal immigrants will be sent back each week. For comparison, 44,000 have arrived in the last year, or around 850 each week. Opposition Home Secretary Chris Philp said it's not going to be a deterrent.
That represents only 6% of those arriving. What that means is that Keir Starmer is saying 94% of illegal immigrants, 16 in every 17, can stay in the UK.
France and Britain also signed a declaration to agree to coordinate their nuclear deterrence. France and Britain are the only two European nations with nuclear weapons. Earlier in the day, the two hosted a Coalition of the Willing meeting, the proposed peacekeeping force to help Ukraine in a post-war future. They said the coalition is ready to go once a ceasefire is agreed.
So whilst this coalition will continue to stand ready to support a future peace, as leaders, we should shift our work in this group from preparing for peace to making it happen.
Under the coalition plans, troops from France and the UK would be placed in Ukraine, while other countries would provide logistical support, all with the aim of deterring further Russian aggression. European leaders have insisted the arrangement would be dependent upon an American security guarantee, likely in the form of air support. President Trump has been unwilling to commit to this, but in a signal of changing attitudes in Washington, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, joined the Coalition of the Willing meeting, a first for any member of Trump's administration. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Coming up at Wimbledon, a major upset on the women's side has an American into the finals. Dave Martin joins us to discuss when we come back. Now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, plenty going on today. Another day without the big wall. Let's start in Wimbledon, though. As the women's semifinal matches were going on, we have an American now in the finals.
Yes, 13-seeded Amanda Anisimova. All right, I'm going to say that multiple times. One of these times I'll actually get it correct. But she upset top-ranked Aryna Sabalenka in 3 sets today. Now, this was a power against power match. These are two of the hardest hitters in the game, two of the most aggressive. Sabalenka's serve clocked at 120 miles an hour today, and Anisimova at 112. The average exchange was just over 3 shots. It's very quick work, not very many long rallies today, and it was very hot there today, 88 degrees. 2 times they had to delay the match or stop the match for a bit because fans felt unwell. But let's listen to what Anisimova said afterwards.
Yeah, to be honest, it did kind of make it tough for me. I felt like I was getting tired throughout some points of the match. When I took that bathroom break, I saw how red my face was. But yeah, I was just trying to cool off as much as I could on the changeovers, and I knew that it was going to be a tough match, and I had to fight my way through. No, I wasn't celebrating. I mean, it was just like a long grunt, I guess. I don't really know what was the deal there, to be honest, because I didn't feel like it was that interfering. But yeah, I tried to not do it again, but yeah, it was just such a high stakes match, and I think we were both like grunting a lot out there. We have a big game, so it just that's the outcome of it. But yeah, I wasn't really sure what the issue was, but I can play it back. Maybe I was a bit interfering, like I don't really know.
Yeah, so this is her first Grand Slam final ever, so congratulations to Amanda Anisimova.
I wanted to check, so it was delayed because the audience was too hot. What about the players?
Well, the players were hot, but they have like, water and stuff. They have like cooler. In fact, they actually showed Dabalenka bringing a water and something like a cooler over to a couple of fans in the stands. Very nice gesture on her part. But yeah, the players I would think would be a lot hotter there, sweating out over there in the court. But apparently they were all right. They do get that bathroom break maybe, and they show them in between the sets. They got ice around their neck too. So thank you for showing a lot of concern there for Tiff. Yes, for the players there, Tiff. Yes, they have it tough.
Well, on that note, in the other semifinal, we had a 5-time major champion against the only mom left in the field. How did that one turn out? Yeah,
we're gonna love these names too here. Iga Swiatek, the 5-time major champion, she got the win today. Another very dominant win over Belinda Bencic, 6-2, 6-love. Swiatek, she's won 4 French Opens, 1 US Open, former #1 player in the world. This is already her best showing at Wimbledon ever, and she's only dropped 1 set this entire tournament. Let's listen to what she said after the match.
Well, I think there's no place to overthink here. So you kind of have to follow your instincts, and if that is going well, and you can rely on them for sure, you feel comfortable. So this is kind of fun in some way and different than on other surfaces where you have more time to build a rally or something. And yeah, well, as you said, when you're playing well, it's easy to enjoy. But I would say this is the main difference. Well, I haven't followed her previous matches today. I followed because I was playing after, so I didn't watch though. So for sure, she must be playing great. She also had great tournament before Wimbledon, so she knows how to play on grass, and with her game style, the surface, fits her. So so it's gonna be a challenge, but yeah, I haven't watched a lot, so I'm gonna just prepare tactically tomorrow, and that's it.
So it's going to be Iga Swiatek versus Amanda Anisimova tomorrow for the Saturday for the championship. That'll be 11 a.m. Eastern time. Meanwhile, tomorrow we got the men's semifinal matches. Taylor Fritz versus Carlos Alcaraz. That'll be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Then we got Novak Djokovic against Jannik Sinner after that match. So it's two very big men's matches and a very big women's matches coming up soon.
And lots of big names. Well, shifting gears to the NBA, Oklahoma City's Jalen Williams has reportedly agreed to a 5-year extension to stay with the Thunder. Now, this would seem to solidify their core.
Yeah, just yesterday we were talking about how they signed Chet Holmgren to that 5-year max extension. It was $250 million. The day before, it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander getting that super max extension, 4 years, $285 million. Now, Williams' extension could be worth more than up to $287 million over 5 years, as you said. That's what his agents, Bill Duffy and Justin Haynes, told ESPN. Williams, a tremendous two-way player. He can score and defend. He was an all-star this year in just his 3rd season in the league. But that's Oklahoma City's 3 biggest star players, all locked up for the foreseeable future. All 3 are still in their mid-20s. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the oldest of the group, and he's only 26. And I've talked about how they're really set up for the long haul with extra draft picks still to convey from trading away Paul George and Russell Westbrook 6 years ago, which really started this rebuild. I don't think I can ever remember an NBA champion this well set up for the foreseeable future for a possible dynasty. Of course, they've only got 1 down yet, so I'm not gonna count all their dynasty titles yet, but they are well set up for possibly doing it.
To watch for there. Looking at baseball action today, though, Chicago Cubs outfielder Pete Crow-Armstrong homered twice in a win, putting him in the 2025 club already. Where does that rank him as far as the fastest to do so?
He is the 4th fastest ever to do this. 92 games. That's 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases. Actually, he's already at 27 steals. So he's having an incredible season. We're not even at the All-Star break yet. Now, last year, of course, Shohei Ohtani, I'm sure you remember, became the first member of the 50-50 club. Crow-Armstrong is actually ahead of that pace, so maybe he joins them, maybe not. We'll have to stay tuned. So anyway, Cubs beat the Twins 8-1. They have a 1.5 game lead over Milwaukee in the Central. More games tonight, including the Yankees versus the Mariners. That means we have the two biggest home run hitters again. Cal Raleigh of Seattle with 36 home runs. Aaron Judge second with 34 home runs. Now, neither homered in last night's game. Hopefully we get a home run tonight's game. Game starts at 7:05 Eastern time tonight. So Tiff, you better run home if you're going to catch that game, all right?
We better let you run more like.
I won't be doing much running these days, I'll tell you that right now. But maybe at the wall here soon, though. I know you miss having me over there. We're so close in proximity here. Over there, I know you like seeing me much farther in the distance there, right?
Just more B-roll in the background. Anyway, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For on-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.